You ever seen Los Angeles at 4 o'clock in the morning? The sky was full of stars, the lights were faint, and all I could hear was the hollow sound of a basketball entering the net. This is a classic statement by basketball superstar Kobe Bryant. At this time, a Lamborghini was driving fast on the empty street, and Eric looked up at the car window, and there were indeed stars hanging in the sky. Just now, he is woken up by Judy's phone call in his sleep, and the chick sends him a plea for help, and the Olsen sisters need help. I had no choice but to run by myself. The car arrives at a hotel, and Eric enters the door and goes straight to the elevator, where he soon arrives at the room Judy is talking about. Knock knock. It's me. Open the door.
Moment.
Later, the door opened, and Judy and Eric faced each other. What's going on? What's going on? Asked Eric as he pointed to a few bloody streaks on Judy's neck. Judy shook her head sullenly. You come in first. Walking into the room, there were wigs and hats thrown on the floor, as well as ornaments that Eric didn't recognize. What is this? Are you playing a game of 007? Secret Infiltrator Investigator. What the hell are you talking about? The place I'm taking them to is a bar. What if someone gets recognized? Of course it's going to be cross-dressed. Well, that's kind of true, but what about your neck? Did you get into a fight with someone? Judy wiped the blood. No, it was caught by Mary, and there may be Ashley's nails. I can't figure out the specifics. After I took them to the bar, the three of us were together, but the two of them offered to get a closer look at Lala's real lifestyle, so I walked away. Eric stared at Judy in disbelief. Really? Well, there was actually a nice girl who invited me, but I didn't go far, just left for a little while, and I went back to have a look. I noticed that Sister Olsen had a good chat with the two girls I was talking to, and then I was relieved to leave. Is there any mistake that you just left them there and had a good time on your own? They are not you. They are inexperienced newbies. Eric said angrily. It's not what you think. I just went to the bathroom, and I didn't really leave the bar. I can go back to take care of them at any time, and look at the two of them. What's the difference between them and adults? Eric said as he walked towards the room, and the suite was still open, and before he could get inside, he smelled a heavy smell of alcohol. When I walked in, I saw Ashley and Mary lying on the bed in a mess, their arms and thighs intertwined. The upper body is half exposed. The lower half of the meat pants are half out, and the golden hair is looming. You're still letting the two of them drink? They're not 21 years old, and if Garnetti and David found out, they'd scold me. Who are Garnetti and David? Asked Judy. Ashley and Mary's dad and mom. What else do you think? I heard David was a master shooter. Judy's expression was hussy. I didn't know that they would drink so much. They just said that they would just experience life, and they didn't have to experience it so deeply, and when I went back to them, it would be the same. Eric glared at Judy. Is there anything else besides being drunk? Have you been violated? Have you been sexually harassed? Judy hurriedly shook her head. Don't worry, I'm going to a high-end place. This kind of thing won't happen. Everyone is on the principle of voluntariness. Eric sighed. Judy Newhouse, I shouldn't have believed you. Stop talking nonsense. Send them home. Do you want to send them home? Didn't you say their parents would curse? If you're afraid, you won't do it? What if you don't send them home? What if you don't send them home? What if you call the police? Take the minor to the bar. You wait to be arraigned. Judy's face was bitter, and then she said flatteringly, That's why I called you. You are a good friend of the Olsen family, and no one is embarrassed to blame you. Then I'll leave it to you. Leffley has called me several times, and I need to go to the doctor. Go first, bye. After saying that, Judy ran out of the room in a few steps, and Eric reached out to grab her when he saw this. But Judy's combat power was the strongest among the five of them, and he had already closed the door and ran away with a hard push. Ah! Eric, is that you? Eric stood up cautiously. It's me. Ashley. Get dressed quickly. Wake Mary up. I'll send you home. Go home. Isn't this home? Why are you in my house? Eric patted her face gently. Wake up. This is the hotel. I'll help you up. Helping. Ashley to the bathroom, wiping her face with a wet towel and looking at herself in the mirror. Ashley regained some consciousness. She clutched her head in discomfort. OMG. You've drunk too much alcohol. Don't drink so much in the future. It's dangerous for girls to drink too much. Drink some water and slow down. Eric found the mineral water in the room, unscrewed the lid and handed it to her. Knockboom. As a result, halfway through the mineral water, Ashley's hands began to shiver due to the effects of the alcohol, and the water fell directly to the floor. Eric, I don't really drink much. Mary and I used to drink some red wine, but this time the two girls invited us to drink. What did you drink? I don't know, it's the bar. Eric sighed. There must be a mixture of spirits in it. No wonder you two are so drunk. How are you now? Are you better? Walking back to the living room crookedly, Ashley sat on the sofa with her ass. You look at me, do you look good? Then go home first. Gannetti will be in a hurry. Eric smiled wryly. Ha 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 ha. Are you worried that she will call the police? It's okay. I've already told my mother beforehand. We're having a party with crew friends, and she knows. If she had called the police would have rushed to the hotel. Eric breathed a sigh of relief. That's right. After all, you're white women. Looking at the man's pouting appearance, Ashley suddenly felt handsome and cute. She shook her somewhat drowsy head, patted the side and said, Come here, you sit down and let's talk. Eric pointed to the clock on the wall. If there is anything to say tomorrow, it's too late. You and Mary have a good night's sleep. I should go back too. With that, he turned to leave, and his heart relaxed. As a result, when I was about to walk to the door, I suddenly felt a sinking of my body, and my two arms hugged me, and the soft part was pressed against my back. Eric was stunned for a moment. Ashley, what are you doing? A soft voice sounded behind him. Eric, I just want to chat with you. Are you in such a hurry to leave? Eric wanted to break her hand away, but found that the girl had a lot of strength today. Ashley, let go of your hands. It's not good. I'm going to make a mistake. Ashley giggled and said, Then let's do it. What's there? I found it good to be drunk, and although my head may be uncomfortable, my guts have grown a lot. Okay, I'll let go of my hand, but you can't go. Let's talk, okay? Eric nodded. The two of them stood facing each other in the hallway, with their wigs and hats scattered at their feet. Eric looked at the other person. Ashley, what the hell are you trying to say? The girl was smiling, but perhaps not sober yet, and her smile looked a little silly. Eric, how long have we known each other? It seems like a long time has passed since New York. Do you know how your image has changed in my heart? Huh. Of course. You can't know that when we first met, you gave me the feeling that apart from this handsome face, the rest was greed. You want to eat double-star entertainment, right? I was thinking it wouldn't be bad if you could help us get rid of that nasty guy in Solnay, but I don't know if you have what it takes. But it wasn't long before you surprised me that Solnay was really easily driven away by you, and in addition to greed, you became a very capable young handsome guy in my heart and developed a trace of charm. In place of Robert Solnay, I thought you were going to put pressure on us in the management of the company, but you didn't, but instead provided a series of business strategies, and I felt that you became a handsome guy who was capable, charismatic, and not strong and greedy. Later, when the reporters besieged me and Mary, you took the initiative to stand up and protected us behind you, and spoke up to Michael Jackson, and you became a handsome man with a capable, charismatic, and righteous sense. Speaking of this, Ashley paused for a moment and then took a deep breath, plucked up the courage to say, Eric Cooper, I'm tempted by you. Judging from Ashley's various behaviors, although it was expected, Eric was still a little surprised. He didn't expect the other party to go through such a mental journey. Ashley frowned. What are you doing? Aren't you going to say something or do something? Well, I just don't think it's the right time. Isn't it time? What do you mean it's not time? Do you think I'm ugly? Ashley asked with some excitement. Of course not. You're beautiful, Ashley, and the whole country recognizes your cuteness and beauty. Eric hastened to explain that he knew Ashley was an introverted person. This time, when he can speak his heart while he is drinking, he must have mustered up 10,000 points of courage, and if he is rejected, Adele's life will most likely be shut down. Then don't talk nonsense. Ashley suddenly pressed over, hooked Eric's neck and began to kiss, her tongue sliding over his face with a tingling sensation. Fuck it. The girls have taken the initiative to this point, and if they endure it any longer, they will become eunuchs, and they will fuck and put everything aside. Especially Elena's, who just scolded herself a few hours ago. Okay, let's get some interest from your niece first. Once the shackles of thought are opened, the shackles of morality are thrown away, and desire is like a flood of beasts devouring all reason. The two obsessive bodies quickly hugged each other, and Eric's big hands explored up and down, expertly untying the hidden pins and buttons. Her clothes were ripped off, and Ashley was like a water snake, her legs wrapped around Eric's waist. The head raised high let out a shallow chant. After a long time, Eric carried her to the couch and was about to go further, when he suddenly realized something and couldn't help but stop. Who, Eric, what's wrong? Ashley asked, her eyes glazed over. Eric gestured to the suite. Did we forget Mary? Ashley also remembered that her sister was still sleeping inside, but in this situation, it was impossible to stop. It's okay, let's do it quickly, she won't wake up. Eric laughed. Ashley, do you remember a joke I told? What joke? I said this face was my second most satisfying part, and you asked where was my first satisfying part? Ashley looked down. Now I know, his size is really a little scary. No, baby, not only is it strong, but it's also very endurance. Oh my God. A foreign object invaded, and Ashley instantly opened her mouth wide and unconsciously flipped up. The squeaky sound of the swaying couch, and the time kept moving forward, and before I knew it, it was 5 o'clock in the morning. Ashley was kneeling on the couch to meet the impact, supporting her body with one hand and covering her mouth with the other, the only way to hold back her voice. His brows were furrowed, dense beads of sweat oozed from his forehead, and his expression seemed to be painful and comfortable, and he endured it very hard. What are you doing? Suddenly, a loud roar sounded behind them, and the two looked back, only to see that Mary had woken up at some point and was standing not far away watching all this. Seeing this, Eric and Ashley hurriedly stopped their movements, trying to find some cover, but their clothes were taken off in the hallway, and there was nothing at hand, and the scene was temporarily embarrassing. Mary, are you awake? Covering her eyes and not daring to look at her sister, Ashley held back a few words for a long time. I ask you what you're doing? I just slept. Why is this happening? Ashley could only look at Eric behind her ass in the face of her sister's questioning. The latter didn't know what to say, thinking about it, but fortunately he didn't pretend to be in a horizontal position, and he was all caught. What else was there to say? Mary, as you can see, we're doing this kind of thing. Whatever you want, it's up to you. I have nothing to say. After saying that, Eric simply continued to move regardless of it. Ashley's face was already red to the base of her ears, and she slapped him hard. Stop. Don't move. No, I won't. Can you hide it from Mary? Even if you can hide it today, what about it in the future? He said harder. You was stimulated by Eric's verbal movements, and Ashley's deep forbidden desires gradually opened. Especially when she was teased in the bar not long ago, the strange stimulation made her hum. Then it became louder and louder, as if to release all the feelings that had been suppressed just now. Look in front of this big drama. Mary's original anger and depression gradually disappeared, and she wanted to leave this shameful place, but she couldn't take her eyes off. Especially her sister's screams, which kept hitting her brain again and again. Recently, in order to prepare for Adele's life, she and Ashley have also practiced some movements in private, but they have never been so deep. 1 step, 2 steps. Instead of leaving, she couldn't help but move to the side of the sofa. Looking at her sister, who was about to drip water, she asked softly, "Ashley, are you comfortable?" "Uh-huh." Suddenly, Mary grabbed Eric's hand and placed it on her bear. OMG. Ashley, the other party, was lying on her side, one hand supporting her head, and she was looking at her with malicious eyes. That seems to say, "Look, you just murdered me. What do you look like now?" What? What are you looking at? What do you mean by that look? Although the situation was already like this, Mary was still a little uncomfortable, and she frowned and asked, "See what I do?" Eric gasped for air, and his chest was covered with dense beads of sweat, making his well-proportioned muscles look very smooth and beautiful. Ashley licked the corners of her mouth. "I remember you said, Eric is not your favorite type. Don't you like muscular hunks? Isn't that muscle?" Mary slapped Eric's chest muscles hard, crackling. Watching her movements, Eric suddenly laughed. "What are you laughing at?" asked Sister Olsen at the same time. "It's nothing, the sound of you slapping my chest. It's just that it sounds funny." Smack. Shameless. Mary's face turned red, and she scolded and slapped again. Eric grabbed her hand and pushed her over with a little force. Mary laughed and tossed hard with her hands and feet, trying to kick Eric away. "Ashley, help me and push this monster away." "Ashley, hold her down." The two looked at Ashley together, and the other shrugged, then suddenly pressed on his sister and grabbed her arm. "Bastard! How are you going to help this guy?" Mary's eyes widened. "Now, I need to see the results of your experience of life." Adele's life special scene action. Time continued to move forward, and the thick curtains obscured the neon light outside, making it impossible to tell whether it was night or day. No one knows what the result will be if this development continues, and no one wants to think about it. The brain congestion has returned to bestiality, and reason has long been thrown into the clouds. Now in this room, only the breath of desire can be smelled. Under the light, faint shadows are reflected on the walls. Ringing. The rapid ringing of the phone woke Eric, and he shook his groggy head. Looking at the time, it was already 9 a.m. If you can't move, you will definitely not be able to move, which will inevitably wake up the sisters. The two of them hadn't woken up yet, and were now sleeping to death. Forget it. It must be the crew. Whatever, sleep. Eric closed his eyes. He had to deal with Nico at night, and he had to sleep a little more. Ashley slowly spoke. "Eric, is that your phone?" "Leave it alone, sleep baby." Eric gently patted the other man's smooth back. "Take it. In case there's something important, don't delay." Eric smiled helplessly. "Look at the way I look now. I can't move." Ashley opened her eyes and noticed that her sister was hugging Eric as tightly as she did. She smiled and said, "It seems that Mary is a liar. What is not my dish? She just doesn't want to admit it." Eric nodded. If he really didn't feel it, how could he possibly join? It was just pretending to be reserved. Ashley went to the living room to get her phone, and then her fingers wandered over Eric in circles. "Eric, why haven't you been on the set yet?" And Ashley and Mary. Judy's eager voice came from the other end of the phone. Theoretically, being able to sleep in the same bed with the Olsen sisters would be a credit to Judy. But this guy's performance last night made Eric remember, and he actually threw the trouble directly to him and ran away, which was simply not responsible at all. Now take the initiative to call her, just to play her. Eric first made a booing gesture for Ashley to keep quiet. Then, in the other party's puzzled gaze, he pretended to be weak and said, "I was shot, and now I am lying in the hospital, just after surgery. OMG, what the hell is going on? Which hospital are you in? I'm going to go over. Judy instantly exclaimed. It's not that I blame you for leaving me alone in the hotel. I said David was a master shooter. OMG, OMG, did you get shot while you were taking them home? That's right, I was shot in the chest, Judy. I'm afraid I can't hold it anymore. It's all my fault, it's all my fault. Don't say something like that. I'll come right over. You wait for Eric. Judy on the other side was already crying, and it was obvious that her footsteps were hurrying, probably running briskly. Wait, which hospital are you in? I don't know which hospital you're in, FUCK. I can't find my car. Ha 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 ha. That's right, that's right. N. A thud was heard, followed by the roar of the engine. Judy hurriedly asked, Eric, which hospital is it? Tell me quickly. Huaxia First Hospital, you have to fly here. What? Huaxia? Why are you waiting? Are you laughing? I think I heard your laughter. You son of bitch, motherfucker. Was stunned for a moment, and Judy's invective suddenly sounded on the other side. Eric hung up and called Andrea again. Phone. After connecting, Andrea also asked suspiciously, Director, I just heard Judy say something shooting, and then she ran out in a hurry. Are you okay? It's okay. I'm just informing you. There's something important to come, and Ashley and Mary can't come over. Business matters. Okay, but if you don't show up, what will the crew do? Let's rest. Just give everyone a half day off, and we'll be back in the afternoon. Okay, Director. Hanging up, Eric tossed his phone aside. This is the advantage of a large company. I want to stop work. Anyway, the machines and props are my own. That is, I occasionally use other people's space. It can be said that with the exception of the actors, almost all that remains is company property, and even employees can be included, and there are no rental fees. As for the actors' salaries, the group performances are on a daily basis, and the Olsen sisters' salaries are also very cheap. After all, the two of them are mixed to the point of retiring from the circle. Each of them is only $1 million, and they signed a 2-month contract. If this kind of thing is put on a small crew, the director suddenly disappears, and the leading actor suddenly disappears. The producer will be so angry that he goes crazy. Patted Ashley's buttocks. Sleep, baby. Start work in the afternoon. Wait, don't worry. Eric closed his eyes and opened them again. Aren't you? Haven't you eaten yet? Ashley punched lightly on his handle. Hit you bad. I just have a question for you. Not only I want to ask, Mary actually wants to know. What's the problem? You make sure to answer carefully and be honest. Then I don't guarantee it. Nasty ghost. Okay, you ask. I promise to tell the truth. Ashley fluttered 2 big eyes. What is your relationship with Aunt Elena? What? Eric asked as he pretended not to react. Alina Olsen, my aunt. What were you two doing in your hotel room when we first met in New York? Ooh. Eric made a sudden realization. It's nothing, it's just a chat. Talk about MGM's development, loans, funding, and the like. Really? You just swore that you can't lie to me. Of course I didn't lie to you, we're all like this. Do I have any need to hide it? Then, why did Mary and I ask about a strange smell at the time, like this one now? Eric laughed dryly. What's the problem? It's just a hotel, not a home, and now the Plaza Hotel belongs to those bearded people in the Middle East. Arabs, bearded. I heard that they don't pay attention to hygiene, and they have to wrap themselves in thick clothes in 40-degree weather. How can there be no smell of sweat on their bodies? Vomit. So the hotel is under their management. What smells is not surprising, don't you say? Ashley stared into Eric's eyes for a moment before nodding. Okay, trust you. Eric breathed a sigh of relief and passed. It's a shame that I thought you were intimate with Aunt Elena. Ashley sighed. Eric's eyes widened instantly, and his mind was like electricity, thinking about the meaning of Ashley's words. Is she? No, no, it must be a trap, still tricking me. With a serious expression on his face, Eric said righteously, "What are you talking about? Little fool, I and Elena are just doing business." This time Ashley finally smiled. "That's pretty much it, I believe you." In the afternoon, the crew of Adele's Life, the three people who slept until noon appeared, of course, not by car, to avoid suspicion. Judy looked at Eric with an unhappy expression. "Isn't it fun? You're going to scare me to death." Eric looked at her with a smile. "Who told you to leave me alone in the hotel? It's too much of a friend." "But you're cool, aren't you? Sister Olsen, aren't you? You're the big guy. I'm the kind of person who takes advantage of people's danger. You don't know how much effort it took me to send them home." Judy didn't continue to ask the question. She knew Eric's character, and she definitely couldn't do the next thing that a drunken MJ would do. Happy things should pay attention to a dead fish that you and I want, and there is no response. What is the meaning? Andrea walked over. "Ready, director." Adele's Life Scene 10 action. The scene notes a crisp board, and yesterday's footage was reshot. As the props crew controls the green light to turn on, Mary walks with Ashley in her arms and a group performer. After walking a few steps, the two figures met. They seemed to sense something for each other, and at the same time looked back at each other, and the glimpse of the crowd seemed to be eternity. Yesterday's Olsen sisters, they still can't find the feeling, and they are always tied up when shooting this one. But after experiencing the hotel, everything has changed. Not only the relationship between the two and Eric, but also the relationship between the two sisters. Everything is different, both physical and mental. "That's great, it's over." Eric shouted in encouragement, and the others applauded. Andrea looked at the surveillance screen, from which she could clearly see the micro-expressions on the faces of the two. "That's good, how did they do it?" "Look at Mary's eyes. It's amazing that they found a way after only one night." Eric nodded. "That's it. If you want to play a role well, you have to experience it deeply. It seems that our method is very effective." Andrea still couldn't help but admire. "It's just that it works too quickly. This kind of look is like a lover. It seems that those children's youth dramas have restrained the Olsen sisters." "What?" "There are actors who are born into a certain type of play, and maybe that's the path the Olsen sisters should follow. They are geniuses for acting of the same sex." Eric chuckled a few times, thinking to himself that it wasn't thanks to me. As soon as Run S second pulse is opened, Ashley and Mary are like suddenly awakened martial arts masters, and no more than 3 scenes can be passed. Eric didn't spare his hand. Taking advantage of their excellent condition, he directly sacrificed the most difficult part of the breakup scene. Emma is angry because Adele is riding in another man's car, and the conflict that has accumulated for a long time ushered in a big explosion. The two read their lines quickly, and the abundant emotions almost burst out of the screen. Every expression, every action, every look, and every tone of a sentence all vividly express the state of lovers when they break up. Next to him, James McAvoy stared blankly at the performance, his eyes widening in shock. Are these still the Olsen sisters? Compared to yesterday, it's like 2 people. His heart roared. Is this a mix of Meryl Streep, Katharine Hepburn, and Greta Garbo mixed together and eaten? How could acting skills suddenly improve so much? It's outrageous. The afternoon, Ashley and Mary were in a state of divine help, and the filming progress was the same as having grown wings. In half a day, a full 6 pages of script were filmed, and those who are familiar with the film and television industry must understand how terrifying this number is. After an extra hour of work, the crew simply finished filming all the scenes that needed to be filmed at Universal Studios in one go. When it was all over, not only the actors, but even the MGM staff looked incredulous. Such a crazy shooting schedule may not be encountered once in 10 years. The key is that the quality is still guaranteed. Eric clapped his hands. "Thank you very much for your hard work today. It's over. We'll see you next Monday." With his order, today's work is over, and everyone begins to leave one after another. Andrea excitedly hugged Sister Olsen. Ashley, Mary, you guys are amazing. It's beyond imagination. The two sisters smiled sweetly. Thank you. James McAvoy still hasn't come back to his senses. He walked up to Ashley, who was playing against him, and humbly asked, Ashley, how the hell did you do it? Your performance is so amazing. Is there any special trick that you can share with me? Ashley secretly looked at Eric. I don't know very well, but I figured it out all of a sudden. Maybe it's what Eric said about the sense of faith. Actors have to believe in your role. McAvoy looked puzzled. I know what you said. The teachers in the school will teach it, but what should the process do? Ashley shook her head. I'm sorry, James. I can't tell. It's a feeling. I don't know how to describe it. More mysterious, she said. The more Jean-Aimé believed it, because acting is a very talented thing, and it is not uncommon for a flash of inspiration to occur. He could only sigh helplessly. It seems that I still need to accumulate experience. Maybe it is a good choice to go back to the UK to continue participating in dramas. Come on, James. I'm sure you're going to be a good actor. With a casual word of encouragement, Ashley came around Eric, and she and Mary sandwiched the man between left and right, just like they had been half a day ago. Eric, come to our house on Saturday. The last time you came back from Santa Barbara, Garniti invited you, but you turned you down. That's right. You didn't know that little Elizabeth had made a special call to my mother to make a sumptuous dinner, and you made her sad. Saying that, the two scolded Gal Gadot together in their hearts. Originally, they didn't have any feelings for this woman. At most, they envied her good luck. But now it's different. Little Elizabeth says that Gal Gadot is Eric's admitted girlfriend, so the question arises, what are their sisters? Although the two sisters will definitely have competition, but that is an internal contradiction. Gal Gadot is different. This is an invasion of external forces, and she must be driven away first. Eric, an excellent man, is definitely a good choice to be a boyfriend and husband. Is young, handsome, and talented, has a superior family background and a lot of money, and is inextricably linked with Double Star Entertainment, and it is a fool not to grasp it. In the face of the invitation, Eric did not know the psychological activities of the Olsen sisters, but he had to go to New York on the weekend, so he naturally could not go to the appointment. I've been snubbing Elena's for more than a month, and if I don't show up again, I'm afraid that the other party will really be angry, and I have to visit Sergei Hassenfeld. This relationship is very important, and maintaining it is very helpful for the future. He pondered the language. I'm afraid it won't work on Saturday. I already have an appointment. Two sisters were alarmed, and Mary asked directly, with whom? Eric thought to himself that I was going on a date with your dear aunt, but I couldn't say. No. Why is it said that Gadot is going to New York and have a business to discuss with Hasbro? Hearing this, the sisters breathed a sigh of relief, as long as they didn't fool around with Gal Gadot. It's a pity, but you've already missed your appointment twice. Don't you feel a little guilty? Eric spread his hands. I don't think so. You took the initiative to invite me, and I didn't take the initiative to go. Why should I feel guilty? Bang. Oh, don't fight. Okay. I'll go next week. That's it, okay? After getting Eric's promise, the two sisters left happily. On the pink Lamborghini, Mary said hesitantly, Ashley, do you think he's lying to us? I don't know. I can't continue to ask him. It will make him disgusted. What can you do? Do you want Aunt Elena to keep an eye on him? Anyway, my aunt lives in New York, and they are friends. Whether Eric is going to work in New York or not, try to find out. After a moment of silence, Ashley sighed. Is this necessary? Even if it turns out that he is lying to us, what can you do? This question suddenly made Mary not know how to answer. Yes, even if she knew that it was a deception. So what? The relationship was unequal from the start, with the Olsen sisters in a weak position and Eric in absolute dominance. There is not much road ahead of them, or quit early. Simply don't wade into this troubled water, and just maintain a business partnership in the future. But for young people like the Olsen sisters whose minds are not yet fully mature, this path is a bit difficult, especially when the relationship between the three is so complicated. Or just work hard, drive away the other competitors around Eric, and finally succeed in the top position. This path is even more difficult to follow, and the first condition is to learn to be patient, to be able to endure your temper, to endure your character, and even to turn yourself into a teenage mutant ninja turtle. After all, Eric is not a good man with pure feelings, with his character of not being able to control the lower half of his body. Coupled with the temptation of the entertainment industry, it is too difficult. Mary also sighed, "Don't ask me. I don't know what to do, but if I don't even know if he is lying to us, I am even more uncomfortable and unwilling. No matter, I'm going to call Aunt Elena anyway." "Okay, let's fight." "Eric, are you going out again? I heard movement in the middle of the night. Is there a pretty girl?" asked Joshua sheepishly. Boom. Ah. But after drinking it that night, my dad seemed to feel good, and the bottle that was originally full is now only half left, and it is estimated that it really has an effect. Nico won't let herself go. Tonight, he's already spent too much energy on Ashley and Mary, and now that he's still refreshed, let's just try this thing. "Eric, is there a pretty girl?" Joshua pestled his brother's shoulder. "There's a beautiful girl. I'm going to work overtime." "Nonsense, and don't look at what time it is, when I'm a fool." Eric raised the script of La Vie en Rose in his hand. "What are you lying to you? I am busy filming during the day, and I have no time to study at all, so I can only make an appointment with the screenwriter at night." Joshua was skeptical. "Really? Believe it or not, you don't have to do nothing all day. Just go back to the team if you have nothing to do, and learn management well." After saying that, Eric walked out of the house and Lamborghini drove all the way away. Once born and twice cooked, this time the wall was much smoother. No fall and no torn clothes. Eric came to the door with ease. "Ring the doorbell. Nico, open the door, your husband is here." Click. The door opened, and Nicole Kidman walked out wearing a translucent thread with the distinctive concentric knot necklace around her neck. "Where, husband, where? Why can't I see?" She looked left and right, pretending to be searching. Eric stretched out his thumb and pointed to his chin, then realized that something was wrong. How did he subconsciously make Vegeta's deflated gesture, which was unlucky, and hurriedly put it away? "Look at this, don't I be? You're Eric Cooper. How can you be my husband?" Looked at him with a smirk. Eric skillfully took off his coat and picked her up. "You'll know right away." Carrying Nico to the sofa, Eric kissed her nose. "Honey, how do you feel like you've become a little heavier?" "What? Isn't it?" Nicole Kidman broke free of his embrace in an instant, her eyes widening in surprise. She walked to another room and came out a moment later with a scale. "OMG.
I'm 1 maja pounds heavier."
It's horrible. Seeing her reaction so violently, Eric hurriedly took her in his arms, kissed her, and gagged the woman. After a long time the two parted, Eric stroked Nico's forehead. "Relax, ma'am. It's just a little heavier. It's actually pretty good, because you used to be too thin. I wish you could gain another 10 pounds. Nicole took his hand and put it on the bear. "You will comfort me. Female stars can't get fat. That will ruin everything. You look at Kate Winslet. Now she can only play some housewives." "What's wrong with housewives? Isn't it more about acting? And I have a friend who is very infatuated with Winslet, and he doesn't care if the other person is fat or thin. This is true love." Nico put her hands around Eric's neck and looked at him with her eyes. "What about you? Do you care about my fatness?" "Of course I don't care. Didn't I just say it? I want you to gain another 10 pounds. Eric didn't hesitate. "Why? Give me a reason." "I think it's healthy." Nico shook her head. Can your reasons be a little more fake? Well, the meat is good at all. It's too skinny, it's panic. Nasty. Before he finished speaking, the two had already begun a wet French kiss. After a few days of not seeing, Eric was decisively squeezed for 2 hours. After the battle, Nico was back in her languid state, lying in Eric's arms like a kitten. My dear, no wonder you can win the Oscar. I seem to have found a reason. What? Just now you were crazy like you wanted to swallow me, and now you are docile like a bonny rabbit. Isn't this the life embodiment of acting? Eric, I'm seeing you getting more and more annoying. Nico frowned. Hey, really, you hate me? Of course I hate you, but I want other women to hate you even more, so you'll have to stay with me. With that, she climbed up and the two kissed tenderly. After a long time, Nico picked up the script and flipped through it. Don't move, let me concentrate. Do you need a docent? That's the best. Now the script in the hands of the two can only be regarded as the first draft, and there is still a way to go before it is perfect, so it is more understandable with Eric's explanation. The two of them stayed until late at night, and when it came to the end, Nico simply dropped the script and listened intently to Eric's story. Boom! As the clock strikes midnight, the legendary life of Edith Piaf comes to an end with Eric's voice. Wow, although I got to know her specifically after you said it last time, it's still a very emotional life. Eric, what genre do you want to make this film in? A biopic, it has to be a biopic. Eric affirms. If La Vie en Rose is made into an adapted commercial film, then this work will lose its meaning, and it will definitely fail in both commercial and literary terms. Well, I'm glad we agreed on that, and I think playing a role like that would be fun and challenging. Nico, I believe in your acting skills. You are completely capable of handling this role. Maybe it will bring you another little Golden Man trophy. Nico nodded. I like challenges, but there are still a few problems. The height of the little lark is only less than 1.5 meters, but my height. Eric waved his hand. That's not a problem. You can adjust the camera technically, including the singing. I'm going to use the soundtrack of Edith Piaf. You just need to lip sync and learn the acting manners carefully. Is that good? Wouldn't it seem disrespectful? My first film after winning the Oscar was like this, and there would definitely be people who would make irresponsible comments. Nico was a little embarrassed. Eric snorted. Don't care what those film critics think. It won't take a few years. With the demise of the print media, these people will also come to an end. You know, we are going to film the life of a legendary French female singer. Do we have to use French throughout? Of course not. It's still a Hollywood movie, and it's only in English, so what's more flawed than that? Eric dared to say this because the original Marion Cotillard also used the soundtrack, but it didn't affect her in the slightest, because it was not a problem that could be solved by individual efforts. Okay, but I'd like to give it a try, at least show an attitude. To New York, Eric was closing his eyes and recuperating. To be more accurate, it is to close the eyes and nourish the kidneys. After drinking the wine given by Han Sanping yesterday, I really felt alive and in a mess. The mentality before drinking, try to do a little less tonight. The mentality after drinking, I'm going to hit 10. But after 2 hours of the first show, that vigorous state began to fade. Then when he and Nico finished reading the script, the fatigue slowly crept up all over their bodies, and their desires completely subsided in the second half of the night. According to what Lao Han said at the time, the effect of his wine is stronger than that of small pills, and the most important thing is that there are no side effects. But this thing is just a foreign object, a nourishing tonic after all, and it is not an elixir, so it is impossible for Eric to go directly against the sky. After studying the script, the two hugged each other and soon fell asleep. I slept for a long time, and I didn't get up until 10 o'clock. When he left in Nico's treacherous eyes, he probably understood the other party's state of mind. She must have had a premonition that something must happen to her trip to New York, so she gave her little man a boost in advance and warned him not to mess around. The best way to control a man is to make him unable to do it if he wants to. In order to avoid the paparazzi's eyeliner, Eric drove away Nico's car directly, and at the moment sitting in the first class, no matter how beautiful the flight attendant was, he was like a floating cloud. A few hours later, the plane landed, and the silver-white Paramila was parked outside the departure hall as usual, which seemed to have become a tacit approach between the two. Elena Olsen, dressed in elaborate makeup, beckoned to Eric, who had just walked out. Even through the car door and sunglasses, Eric could see her lustful eyes and the estrogen emanating from her body. Alas, life is not easy, the protagonist sighs. Eric could only reluctantly get into this car, who made him such an excellent man. Looking at him, Elena showed a triumphant smile. "What? Are you willing to leave your little lover and come over to accompany me, a middle-aged woman?" Reluctantly, Eric laughed and teased her. "Well, then you're good to go. I don't like to be strong." "It's strange if you're reluctant. You listen to someone finish speaking." "Hee, I have a little conscience." Car started, Elena took off her sunglasses and looked at Eric a few times with a pair of hooked eyes. "My little one, what's wrong with you?" Eric sighed in his heart again. "It's good if I can hold on. What else is it good to pursue?" "It's nothing. It's just that I'm hungry, and I flew over to see you in a hurry, and I didn't eat anything, didn't you hear?" Not only is the stomach growling, but even the brother with a small belly is growling. As soon as he said this, Eric wanted to slap himself. Why didn't he have a handle on this broken mouth, and he had to drive any broken road? Elena winked. "For the sake of you not completely forgetting me, I will invite you to a big dinner in the evening." "What to eat?" "Seafood feast." It's better not to be too fishy. I'm a little hot and my mouth is about to foam." "Rest assured, this restaurant is top-notch in New York, especially the seafood is the most acclaimed." "Well, I'll treat you to milk in the evening." Elena laughed, then pointed to her mouth and snorted. "What do you mean? Why do pigs bark?" "Nasty guy, it's going to spoil the scenery. I still have to drive. You don't want to have a traffic accident. Just give me the initiative." Helplessly, Eric nodded on her red lips, and the woman smiled. "By the way, how about my makeup this time? You said I don't like heavy makeup, so I deliberately painted light makeup. Then I think you'd better wear heavy makeup." Car slid violently, and if it weren't for his seatbelt, Eric would have had to hit his headbag. "Bastard, you call me ugly." "Hey, what do you say, dear, if I think you're ugly, will you fly to New York? There's a lot of pretty girls waiting for me in Los Angeles." "And what do you mean?" asked Elena. "I mean, whether it's light makeup or heavy makeup, there may be a difference for the average person, but for Elena Olsen, it's all the same. You have a unique charm on you, a charm that doesn't need to be supported by makeup or even your face, the allure of a mature woman, you know? As long as it exudes a little bit, it will attract countless people to want to kiss Fangza." Sweet words were intoxicating, and the condition of the car immediately stabilized. "Eric, your mouth and handsome face, coupled with your status in the entertainment industry, I don't know how many girls will be deceived by you." Glancing at each other, Eric smiled strangely in his heart. "Your two nieces have already been eaten by me, and it is not in vain that you introduced them to me personally. However, no matter how dirty your heart is, you still have to maintain your image on the surface." Eric denied it with righteous words. "Don't slander me. I will never attack an ignorant girl. Deceiving is not my means. Your love and my willingness are my bottom line."
As soon as the
words fell, Elena glared at him and said sternly, "What happened to Ashley and Mary?" "What? What are you talking about? Give me the pretense again. You and the two sisters, are you already?" The latter words were not said, but the two knew it. With Eric's understanding of her, And since this girl has already asked, then she must have the evidence. He simply didn't pretend, and I had a showdown. Yes, I did have sex with both of them, but how do you know? Aaron sneered and didn't speak. Wait, Ashley and Mary told you, right? Elena continued to sneer. Eric scratched his head a little strangely. This makes me a little confused. Why are they telling you this? I'm afraid even Garnetti won't say these things. If Garnetti knows, although she has been divorced from David for many years, do you believe that this former couple will stand together again and then come to the door and hack you? Eric shuddered, not to mention that there was really such a possibility. After all, the two baby daughters were slept with by themselves at the same time, and what was even more terrifying was that there was a 14-year-old daughter who worshipped him. In case of this terrible situation in the future, any parent will go crazy. Elena, you haven't told me how you know. Is your aunt and nephew's relationship good enough to use a sanitary napkin? Huh. You idiot, because they made me stare at you. Ah. Elena kicked the gas pedal and sped away. Of course, it's because Mary is worried that you are cheating on them and saying that you are going to work in New York, but you are actually fooling around with other women, especially the woman named Gal Gadot. So they approached me and asked me to test if you were in New York or not, and then I naturally found out what was going on between the three of you. As she spoke, she glared at Eric again, and Palomila stumbled and passed continuously, showing her inner dissatisfaction. Little guy, you are really capable. I don't know how many men in the whole United States want to get the Olsen sisters, but I didn't expect to be killed with one stone by you. Eric could only laugh awkwardly. This proves that your vision is not wrong. If it weren't for a man as good as me, how could you get into the eyes of your Elena Olsen? Besides, the reason why I was able to meet Ashley and Mary is thanks to your aunt. You are a matchmaker, aren't you? Elena snorted coldly. I just didn't expect that you could really succeed. It's good now. My aunt and two nieces share a man. Once this matter spreads, it will definitely be a big international sensation, and my heart is very messy. What's the mess? My heart is very confused. Can't I understand people? Of course I understand, just to make sure. Why? I'll give you a rub. Little bastard, I'm driving. I'm driving too. It's still early, so I went straight to the seafood dinner, and people didn't open the door. Then Elena forcefully pulled Eric to accompany her shopping, and the car drove to the most prosperous street in the world today, Fifth Avenue. It is full of luxury goods and is home to countless internationally renowned brands. The poor are only qualified to look at it, and here it is the favorite of the rich. When the two walked into a Prada store, the salesperson saw at a glance that Elena was wearing high-end women's clothing and had an estimate of the price in her heart. Looking at Eric again, that face was really handsome, so that the women who saw it couldn't help but stop for 3 seconds. However, the line on the body is poor, and I can't see the specific brand. Coupled with the age gap between the two, then the identity is about to come out, and he is considered to be a little white face of a rich woman. But when the bill came out and Eric casually threw out a card for them to swipe, the reversal of identity instantly brought a huge sense of contrast. There is no such thing as a bloody waiter looking down on people and then pretending to be slapped in the face. After all, the people who can work here are people who have undergone a certain level of training, and even if they have ideas in their hearts, who will say them to their faces? This incident has become just a talking point in the group. Wandering until sunset, both of them carried large and small bags in their hands, and when they calculated, they were only $100,000. In exchange, Elena laughed happily, forgiving him for his indifference during this time and not reporting to Ashley and Mary. Of course, she's not qualified to be beaten, who makes her ass clean. After a boring game of spending, the two of them went to the restaurant called Fellendale and sat down in the corner. At this time, there were not many people in the restaurant, and the speed of serving was not slow. and seafood was served one by one. Eric was also really hungry. His eyes were closed on the plane, and the food in the sky was not very palatable, so he didn't eat anything for lunch. He looked at the lobster in the middle, ready to take a bite first. "Wait, little one, let me do it," Elena said as she peeled off the shell of the shrimp and nimbly took out a piece of smooth flesh with a nimble dining knife. Then he gently stuck out his tongue and licked it at the tail, then dipped some sauce in it and brought it to Eric. Subway old man's mobile phone. Eric looked at her speechlessly. "Do you need to do this?" "I think we should eat honestly. Your exaggerated actions will attract the attention of others." Elena just stared at him stubbornly. "I like it. There are surprises after eating it." "What surprise?" "You eat first." Eric could only swallow the shrimp and look at each other as he chewed. Elena looked at him with a smile. "You have to eat all these things. Otherwise, I am worried that you will not have the strength to fight at night." "Don't worry, you're going to fight, but what about your surprise?" Wiping the corners of his mouth, Eric asked. "You'll know in a moment that I'm not like you little bastard, who always breaks his word." Shrugging his shoulders, Eric officially started, not to mention, the level of this restaurant is really good, especially the special dipping sauce, which is quite delicious with the taste of seafood. Half an hour later, the number of people in the restaurant began to gradually increase, and there was also an elderly couple at the table next to the two, estimated to be in their 60s. The old man was dressed upright and looked meticulous, while the old lady was generous and decent, and she looked like a cultured person. Eric had already swept through half of his meal, and the hunger pangs in his stomach were gone. Elena swept the people around her, then looked at Eric and smiled mysteriously and said softly, "There are finally more people. Wait for me, I will surprise you." With that, she got up and walked to the bathroom and came back a moment later, wiped the beads from the corners of her mouth, and seemed to rinse her mouth. Elena, what the hell are you trying to do?" "Shhhhhh. Because of the long tablecloth covering it and the fact that it was a high table, it was impossible to see even if there was a person hidden underneath." As the chain was untied, he understood what Elena's surprise was. No wonder this girl was just about to say that people are almost the same, and it is not exciting enough to have fewer emotional people. Let out a long breath, feeling the tip of his tongue beating. This slippery and greasy feeling is very familiar to him, and it is the most loved by men. Bowing his head slightly, Eric picked up the food and put it in chewing in the mouth, even if the food is tasteless, is just a pretense. He suddenly felt a tightness, and his brow furrowed slightly. Then he looked at the people around him uncomfortably, and there was a feeling of being a thief. After a while, I just got used to this feeling, and suddenly felt a cold attack, which instantly refreshed my mind. It's like a place where fire and sea are intertwined. Shit, so it's called the Ice and Fire Demon Kitchen. New York, Fairdale Restaurant. Eric leaned back in his chair with a look of enjoyment, looking at his expression, and he didn't know how happy he thought he was eating. To be precise, it's how happy it is to be eaten. Elena, this is really powerful, and she can always give herself a little bit of work. This scene is a plot that can only happen in a small movie, and Eric never dreamed that she would give herself this set. Translation: what do you mean by a fucking surprise? That's the fucking surprise. Sure. Under the table, Elena deftly twirled and jumped with her tongue, and her soft palms danced. It makes Eric feel like he is in the middle of two heavens. And seeing that something seemed wrong with him and that there was one less guest, the waiter walked over. "Sir, do you need help?" Eric hurriedly sat upright, quietly clamping his leg and signaling Elena to slow down. "Nothing, just the meal was tasty. I liked it very much. It tasted great." Waiter immediately smiled. "Thank you for your review. This is the best encouragement for Farangel. In fact, we also have a signature cod. Maybe you can try it." Eric pointed to the plate on the table. I think the rest of this will be enough to enjoy, and the signature cod can wait until next time. Okay, then I look forward to seeing you again. Please call me if you need it. Waiter turned to leave, only to turn his back when he suddenly heard a low growl from Eric. He hurriedly turned back to look at Eric. Sir, is something wrong? Is it stuck in the throat? Eric squeezed his eyes, pretended to pick up a napkin and wiped it. It's nothing. It's just that I accidentally spilled the soup on my face. It's none of your business, thank you. Okay, sir. Seeing the waiter walking away, Eric breathed a sigh of relief. Elena, must have heard the waiter's movement just now and suddenly bit him, almost making a fool of himself. If this is exposed, this slut will be shameless and she will want it. Thinking of this, Eric felt that he had to teach her a lesson, and his right hand quietly reached down and slapped it lightly, just on Elena's face. Ah! The old man and the old lady gave Eric a strange look, and then looked around, as if looking for the source of the sound. Lana, it looks like I'm really old. I seem to have auditory hallucinations just now. My dear, I feel the same way, as if I heard a woman's voice. Two old men shook their heads and continued to enjoy their dinner. Eric didn't dare to move anymore, bowed his head and ate his food silently. How do you feel that you are suddenly in a passive position and the handle is completely grasped in Elena's hands? All right, that's pretty much it. Come out quickly. If you don't come out, I won't come out. Elena's small voice came from under the table. Almost only the two of them could hear it. Okay, then I'll try my best. Eating his food mechanically, Eric began to concentrate, intending to get himself out of the box quickly. Eric, why are you here? Suddenly, a somewhat familiar voice sounded not far away, and he subconsciously looked up. I saw a person who couldn't have imagined that he appeared a few meters away, and it turned out to be Lu Xiaoli and Lu Yifei's mother and daughter. I saw Lu Xiaoli pulling her daughter over with a surprised smile on her face, since Huaxia said goodbye. I haven't seen her for a while, and I just sent a few text messages in the middle. She said happily, "It's really fate. I didn't expect to meet here. Fate is really amazing sometimes." Yes, it's really amazing, aren't you in Huaxia? Why did you suddenly come to New York? The other party is so enthusiastic. How to say that it is also a friendly canon? Eric does not respond a few words, and he can't say anything on his face. Lu Xiaoli sighed. Huaxia is not a special situation. It hasn't been released yet, and I don't know how long it will last. I stayed at home all day, my work stopped, and I didn't come back to see Grandma Fei for a long time, so we came back. Saying that, she pulled her daughter's arm. Fei, it's not the first time I've seen you. I'm usually very lively. Why don't you talk? After Lu Xiaoli and Eric stayed overnight, they went back and told their daughter that they had gone to him, the vice president of MGM. The purpose is to pave the way for her daughter to enter Hollywood in the future, and the process is naturally brushed aside. As for whether Lu Yifei understands it or not, it is difficult to guess as a mother. If you don't understand, it's naturally the best, and it doesn't matter if you understand. After all, in this circle, there is no development without relying on resources and connections, and the mother and daughter tacitly understand it. Lu Yifei smiled a little restrainedly and took the initiative to stretch out her hand and said, "Hello, Mr. Cooper. It's a pleasure to meet again." "Hello, Christelle." Two were still standing, and it stands to reason that Eric should have stood up and shook her hand. But in his current state, if he dares to stand up, then it's not a problem of revealing the stuffing, it's a problem of showing the rolling pin. Fortunately, his identity was there, and Lu's mother and daughter did not dare to show it, even if they were unhappy in their hearts. "Fifi, what is Mr. Cooper? Just call Eric like a mother. Don't be shy," Lu Xiaoli said with a smile. Eric nodded. "It's okay. I'll call you by your name anyway." "Okay, Eric." Lu Xiaoli nodded. "Well, that's right. You know, Eric, after we talked last time, I found a professional martial arts teacher for Fei Fei. In addition to taking classes to learn acting, she now has to learn kung fu for an hour every day, and she can already do several sets of boxing. Louis Fei said embarrassedly, "Mom, the teacher said that I was just a showcase, posing." "What's wrong with posing? Jackie Chan and Jet Li are also posing, huh?" "Eric, what's wrong with you? Are your eyes uncomfortable?" Eric struggled and smiled. It's nothing. What you want to do is to look good. The big screen doesn't need to be in real combat." Hiss. "Eric, are you really okay?" It's okay. Let's find a time to talk about it another day. The waiter over there is inviting you to the table." Lu Xiaoli nodded in surprise. "Okay, this is what you said. Don't forget." "Don't worry, I've always done what I say. Their food is good. Go and enjoy your dinner." Sending the two away, Eric thought to himself that I was too lazy to see you, so he lowered his head again and pretended to eat. One hand rests on the forehead so that people can't see the expression at all. If you look closely, you will find that it is really a mixture of feelings, and thousands of emotions are intertwined. Relieving his nerves, Eric looked left and right and knocked on the table while no one was paying attention. "Elena, come out quickly." Receiving the signal, Elena quickly slipped out from under the table, her face flushed. But all this movement was fast, but it did not escape the eyes of the old man next to him, who happened to see the scene of Elena emerging from under the table. As a man in his 60s with rich experience, he naturally understood what the men and women at this table of dogs were doing and realized that he did not have auditory hallucinations. Seeing the old man's shocked and inexplicable expression, Eric got up and left with Elena. As he passed by Lu's mother and daughter's table, Eric nodded to the two. Elena smiled mysteriously at Lu Xiaoli and licked the corners of her mouth to reveal a sexy and seductive look. Just now she noticed that this Chinese woman also saw that scene. Watching the two leave the restaurant, Louis Fei called Lu Xiaoli, who was a little distracted. "Mom, what's wrong with you? Eric is gone. What are you doing in a daze?" Lu Xiaoli rubbed Tai Leon's acupoint, thinking about where she and her daughter were standing just now, and couldn't help but secretly scold the little bastard for playing so boldly. It's a public place, and it's too daring. After finishing the meal, the two walked into a movie theater not far away. Looking at the movie poster in front of him, Eric pointed to The Matrix 2. Reloaded, "How about watching this one?" Elena nodded. "Whatever you want, there is nothing I like anyway." "And what type of movies do you like?" "I don't like to watch movies." Why don't we go?" "It's okay. Watching movies isn't my hobby, but I love the vibe and it makes us look more like a couple." "Don't look, baby. You just played a game on me that only couples play." Elena smiled slightly. "Eric, your mouth is always so flattering, but I know in my heart that age is a chasm between us. I can be your sister, I can be your aunt, but definitely not your lover. Ashley and Mary, they're better suited to a young man like you, and I'd be very relieved if you could make it to the end with either of them." "Well, what do I want to do both?" asked Eric, licking his face. Elena poked a finger on his forehead in anger. "Little guy, don't be too greedy. You already have too much." "But I'm just greedy. What kind of man is there without a greedy man?" "I don't just want two, I want a third, a fourth," Eric said as he squeezed Elena's ass hard. "Ah, and what about the fourth?" Eric shrugged his shoulders and didn't speak, took the movie ticket, and pulled the woman towards the theater. "I chose a position on the back edge, but The Matrix was really popular, and even though it was already its second week, the attendance was still high. In front of the two of them was a young couple, and soon after that several young children sat next to them, chattering and discussing the plot. "You haven't told me yet, who does the fourth want?" Elena seemed to be entangled and continued to chase after her. "It's just an approximation," I said it casually. "Are you still serious?" "Humph. Don't give me duplicity. I don't have any thoughts in my heart. I won't say it in a grand manner. Let me guess. Is it her? As she spoke, Elena leaned in and whispered a name in Eric's ear. OMG, why are you so filthy and your mind is so dirty? Elena sneered a few times. Hee, it seems that I said it. Eric Cooper, you are really a shameless, purebred bastard. You still want little Elizabeth. Are you planning to wipe out the Olsen family? Eric gagged her mouth, and after a wet French kiss, be quiet. Do you want the whole world to know? And don't take speculation as fact. I think of little Elizabeth as a malleable talent and a little sister. I just want to nurture her. Cultivate? Okay, I'll remember what you said today, and don't bring it to bed when the time comes. I promise I won't take the initiative, okay? At this point, the movie begins, and the Warner logo appears in the opening credits. Seeing this logo, Eric was angry, and he didn't know if there was any hope of getting the copyright of Cat and Mouse back in the future. As for classic old movies such as Gone with the Wind and Ben-Hur, to be honest, the artistic value is quite high, but the commercial value is very low. If he could buy back the rights to Cat and Mouse, he would be willing to spend a little more. The Matrix 2 is what Eric thinks is the most exciting of the trilogy, both in terms of action and plot. So even though he had seen it many times before, he could still continue to immerse himself with relish. Elena frowned, yawned from time to time, and looked drowsy. Seeing Eric look so attentive, she suddenly pinched the man's thigh. Shoo, what are you doing? It's boring. It's really not the right activity for me. Let's go. Eric looked at her speechlessly. Is there any mistake? It is obvious that you offered to watch the movie. At least let me watch the scene. He gestured to the big screen, where the virus twins were playing down the highway to kill the main characters. This section was filmed by the Wachowski brothers on a special highway, and the effect was very good. But I don't understand. Tell me a story to refresh me. Eldest sister, did you make a mistake when you came to the cinema not to watch a movie, but you want to listen to me tell a story? Tell it or not, you don't talk about it. Elena pinched his thigh, while coquettishly. Okay, well, what you want to hear, I'll just say 2 sentences, just 2 sentences. Then tell me how you got together with Ashley and Mary. What? Eric looked at her in surprise. Hurry up. It's night, and the Olsen sisters in Los Angeles are enjoying service in a beauty shop. The phone rings, and Mary connects. After talking for a while, she hung up and she looked at her sister happily. Ashley, Eric didn't lie to us. Aunt Elena met him in New York. Alone. Yes, he was alone, and he met with the senior leader of Hasbro. Ashley also had a smile on her face. Now you can rest assured. I will say that Eric will not lie to us. Mary nodded. This is a very good way. If that guy wants to go to New York in the future, he can ask Aunt Elena to keep an eye on him, like planting a nail next to him. 2 sisters were in a good mood and closed their eyes comfortably.